5 million motorbikes pulse through the streets of Hanoi like a single metallic organism, where the only rule of the road is don't stop moving. You're standing on a street corner in the old quarter, the air thick with the scent of roasted star anise and exhaust fumes, clutching a plastic stool that's barely 6 inches off the ground. This isn't a city you visit, it's a city you survive, and eventually fall in love with. We're going from the world's largest cave hidden in the jungle to the lantern-lit alleys of a 15th century trading port. By the end of this journey, you'll know the exact route to take if you want to see the real Vietnam, minus the tourist traps. And stick around, because I'm going to show you one specific island in the far south that most travelers skip, which looks exactly like the Maldives, but costs about $30 a night. If you leave early, you'll miss the one secret about the mountain passes that makes or breaks a trip here. Vietnam is a 1,000-mile S-curve of tropical chaos, misty mountains, and neon-lit skyscrapers. After decades of being defined by a single conflict in the Western mind, it has transformed into one of the most vibrant, fastest-growing cultures on Earth. We're traveling from the rugged Chinese border in the north down to the endless waterways of the Mekong Delta, to see why this country is currently the world's most addictive travel destination. Hanoi is where the journey begins, and it hits you like a physical weight. The humidity acts like a warm hug you didn't ask for, carrying the smell of charcoal grilled pork and wood smoke. The old quarter is the heart of it all. It's a maze of 36 streets, each named after the specific trade that's been practiced there for centuries. There's a street for tin, a street for bamboo, and even a street for gravestones. You walk these narrow sidewalks, dodging parked scooters and bubbling pots of broth, and you realize that life here happens entirely in public. People are getting haircuts on the sidewalk, washing dishes in plastic tubs, and taking naps on the seats of their motorbikes. One of the most surreal spots in the city is Train Street. It's a narrow residential alley where a massive locomotive passes just inches from the front doors of cafes. You're sitting there, sipping an egg coffee, which is a local specialty made with condensed milk and whisked egg yolks that tastes like liquid tiramisu. Suddenly, a whistle blows. Everyone pulls their stools back, and the steel giant roars past, close enough to ruffle your hair. It's a reminder that in Hanoi, space is a luxury and efficiency is everything. If you want to see the soul of the city, you have to wake up at 4 a.m. and head to the Quang Ba Flower Market. While the rest of the world is sleeping, thousands of bikes are arriving from the countryside, stacked 6 feet high with lilies, roses, and chrysanthemums. It's a silent, fragrant explosion of color under dim streetlights. By the time the sun comes up, the flowers are gone, distributed to every street corner in the city. Then, you head to Hoan Kiem Lake. At 5:30 a.m., it's filled with elderly locals doing Tai Chi and aerobics to 90s dance music. There's an energy here that's hard to describe. It's a city that's been through a lot, but it never seems tired. Sitting with a local vendor named Mrs. Lan, who's been selling Bia Hoi, or fresh beer for 20 years, you start to understand the social hierarchy. Your status isn't about your car or your house. It's about how comfortable you are on a tiny plastic chair. If you're the kind of person who would try a mystery meat skewer on a sidewalk or sit in the humidity just to witness the chaos, hit that like button right now because you're our kind of traveler. We're just getting started, but as loud as the city is, the silence of the northern bays is actually more intimidating. A few hours east of the capital, the land just disappears into the sea. Ha Long Bay is the postcard image of Vietnam, with over 1,600 limestone karsts rising out of the emerald water. It looks like a dragon's back emerging from the depths. Most people jump on a big cruise ship, do the buffet, and call it a day. But if you want the real experience, you head to Lan Ha Bay. It's right next door, shares the same geography, but has about 80% fewer boats. You can kayak through sea caves into hidden lagoons where the only sound is the water dripping from your paddle. The geography here is mind-bending. These pillars were formed over millions of years, and many of them have giant caverns inside. You'll see floating villages where families spend their entire lives on the water, their houses bobbing on plastic drums, with dogs running across the decks and kids rowing to school in little sampans. It's a completely different pace of life. But don't think the limestone magic is only at sea. If you head inland to Ninh Binh, you find what locals call Ha Long Bay on land. Instead of the ocean, the limestone peaks rise out of bright green rice paddies. In Ninh Binh, the best way to see it is by boat, but not the kind you're used to. In Tam Kok, the local women row the oars with their feet. It looks effortless, but they're navigating narrow rivers that cut through the heart of the mountains. If you climb the 500 steps of Mua Caves at sunrise, you can look down and see the Ngo Dong River winding through the valley like a giant green snake. The view is so vast it makes you feel tiny. If you think these views are crazy, wait until we head underground into a world that was only discovered a few years ago. Before we go deep into the earth, we have to talk about the transition to the center of the country. The best way to get there isn't a flight. It's the Reunification Express train. It's a slow, rattling journey that hugs the coastline. You sit by the window with a cup of instant coffee and watch the world change. The frenetic energy of the north fades away, replaced by the misty, regal atmosphere of Hue. Hue was the imperial capital of Vietnam for over 100 years. It feels different. The people speak with a more melodic accent, and the food is spicier and more refined. The centerpiece is the Citadel, a massive fortress surrounded by a moat. Inside lies the Forbidden Purple City, where the emperors once lived. Much of it was destroyed during the war, but walking through the crumbling stone gates and seeing the moss-covered ruins gives you a heavy sense of history. It's quiet here. You can hear the wind whistling through the dragon-tiled roofs. But history in Vietnam isn't just about ancient emperors. Just a few miles away are the royal tombs, which are more like palaces. The tomb of Khai Dinh is a weird, beautiful mix of Vietnamese tradition and French influence, covered in intricate mosaics made from broken porcelain vases and glass. It's over the top, but it's haunting. Vietnam is changing so fast, and places like this are the anchors to its past. If you've ever been here, or it's on your bucket list, drop a comment with the one place you're dying to see. It helps the channel more than you know, and I love hearing your travel stories. Leaving Hue, you hit the most famous stretch of road in the country, the Hai Van Pass. If you've seen the Top Gear special, you know the one. It's a winding mountain road that separates the north and south weather systems. As you climb, the air temperature drops, and the clouds often roll over the peaks like a waterfall. On your left is the mountain, and on your right, the South China Sea crashes against the rocks hundreds of feet below. When you reach the top and look back at the Bay of Da Nang, you realize that Vietnam isn't just a destination on a map. It's a feeling of absolute freedom, especially if you're doing it on two wheels with the wind in your face. On the other side of the pass is Hoi An. If Hue is the soul, Hoi An is the fairy tale. It's an old trading port that was preserved because the river silted up, making it useless for modern ships. Today, it's a pedestrian-only zone of yellow-walled merchant houses and thousands of silk lanterns that glow every single night. It's famous for its tailors. There are over 1,000 of them in this tiny town. You can walk into a shop in the morning, show them a photo of a suit or a dress, and by the next evening, you're walking out with a custom-made outfit that fits like a second skin. While you wait for your suit, you have to eat. This is the home of the banh mi puong, the sandwich that Anthony Bourdain famously called a symphony in a sandwich. It's a crusty baguette filled with pâté, grilled pork, fresh herbs, and a secret sauce that people stand in line for an hour to taste. You eat it sitting on the curb, watching the wooden boats bob in the Thu Bon River. It's the kind of moment that makes you want to cancel your flight home. But as peaceful as Hoi An feels, there is a wilder side of Vietnam waiting in the mountains to the west. Phong Nha Ke Bang National Park was once one of the most heavily bombed areas on the planet. Today, it's the adventure capital of Asia. This region sits on a massive limestone plateau that is honeycombed with the world's largest and most spectacular caves. You've probably heard of Hang Son Doong. It's the biggest cave on Earth. It's so large that a 747 could fly through its largest passage, and it has its own internal weather system with clouds forming inside the cavern. Getting into Son Doong costs thousands of dollars and requires a week of trekking, but you don't have to be a professional explorer to see the magic here. Paradise Cave is accessible to anyone, and it's mind-blowing. You walk down a wooden boardwalk into a space that feels like an underground cathedral. The stalagmites are as tall as skyscrapers, shimmering under the lights. You feel like an ant in a giant's house. The people in Phong Nha have turned their history around. Many of the local guides were once illegal loggers or hunters who knew the jungle better than anyone. Now, they're the protectors of the park. There's a place called the Duck Stop nearby, run by a local family where you can literally get a massage from a flock of ducks and eat traditional snacks. It's quirky, it's loud, and it shows the resilient, fun-loving spirit of the Vietnamese people. They've taken a dark past and turned it into a future full of energy and laughter. We've got more deep dives into Southeast Asia coming up. If you want to see the world without the sugarcoating, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss our next expedition. Now we head south to the engine room of the country, Ho Chi Minh City, though everyone still calls it Saigon. If Hanoi is the classic, Saigon is the remix. It is loud, rich, and high speed. The skyline is dominated by the Bitexco Financial Tower and the Landmark 81, which looks like something out of a sci-fi movie. This is where the money is, where the startups are, and where the nightlife never stops. In District 1, you have the French colonial buildings like the Notre Dame Cathedral and the Central Post Office, designed by Gustave Eiffel. But just a few blocks away, you enter District 4, a maze of narrow alleys where the street food is some of the best in the world. You might think you've seen traffic, but you haven't seen the Saigon flow yet. At rush hour, the intersections become a ballet of thousands of scooters. There are no stop signs, just a collective understanding of movement. You don't wait for a gap to cross the street. You just walk at a steady pace and let the bikes flow around you like water around a stone. Saigon is also home to the War Remnants Museum. It's a heavy, sobering experience. Seeing the conflict from the Vietnamese perspective is essential for understanding why the country is the way it is today. It's a place of deep reflection, but as soon as you step back out onto the street, the buzzing energy of the city reminds you that Vietnam is a country that looks forward, not backward. They are remarkably forgiving and incredibly focused on building a better future. To see where the food for this massive city comes from, you have to go to the Mekong Delta. This is the Rice Bowl of Vietnam, a vast network of rivers and canals where the land is more water than soil. Life here is dictated by the pulse of the river. At 6 a.m., the floating markets of Can Tho are in full swing. Huge barges are loaded with pineapples, watermelons, and pumpkins. To show what they're selling, the vendors hang a sample of their product on a long bamboo pole at the front of the boat. It's a vertical billboard system that's worked for centuries. You can hop on a small wooden boat and disappear into the smaller canals, where the palm trees arch over the water and the only sound is the rhythmic thumping of the boat's engine. You stop at a local farm to try elephant earfish or honey tea made with local wildflowers. The delta is slow, muddy, and lush. It's the perfect antidote to the neon grid of Saigon. But even after all this, the mountains, the cities, the rivers, there is one part of Vietnam that most people don't expect. Most travelers think they have to go to Thailand or the Philippines for world-class beaches. They're wrong. Just a short flight from the mainland are the islands of Phu Quoc and Con Dao. Phu Quoc is the famous one, known for its white sands and turquoise water. It's developed with luxury resorts and a massive cable car that breaks world records. But if you want the secret, you go to Con Dao. Con Dao is an archipelago that used to be a brutal prison island during the French and American eras. Because of its dark history, it was left untouched by tourism for decades. Today, the prisons are museums, and the rest of the island is a stunning national park. You can rent a scooter and ride the coastal road with zero traffic. You'll find beaches like Dam Trao where you can watch planes land right over your head while you sit in the sand with a cold coconut. There are no crowds, no rows of umbrellas, just the sound of the waves and the wind in the trees. It's the hidden blue of Vietnam, and it feels like a reward for making it all the way to the end of the country. The most powerful moment of any trip here isn't a specific landmark. It's the realization that happens somewhere in the middle of a long journey. Maybe it's when you're riding over the Hai Van Pass and you feel the temperature shift. Maybe it's when you're lost in a Saigon alleyway and a grandmother invites you to sit on a plastic stool for a bowl of noodles she's been simmering for 12 hours. Vietnam is a country of both worlds. It is both ancient and hypermodern. It is both peaceful and chaotic. It is both a place of deep historical trauma and incredible future-facing optimism. The lesson this place teaches you is to stop trying to plan every second. In Vietnam, The best moments happen when you get lost, when you let the country happen to you. You learn to trust the flow of the traffic and the kindness of strangers who don't speak a word of your language but will make sure you're fed and pointed in the right direction. As the sun sets over the Mekong Delta, the silhouettes of palm trees reflecting in the water, you realize the noise of Hanoi feels like a lifetime ago. You started in the north, overwhelmed by the energy, and you ended in the south, grounded by the earth and the sea. Vietnam doesn't ask you to understand it. It just asks you to show up with an open mind and a very hungry stomach. There are over 45 million motorbikes in this country, nearly 1 for every 2 people. There are 6 different tones in the language, meaning a single word can have 6 different meanings depending on how you say it. It is the world's 2nd largest exporter of coffee, and that caffeine fuels the relentless ambition you see on every street corner. But beyond the facts and the figures, there is a spirit here that stays with you long after you leave. It's the smell of the rain on hot pavement, the clinking of ice in a glass of strong coffee, and the feeling of absolute freedom on an open road. See you on the line.